into answering Jesus' questions, and we'd already looked at a couple of questions. We already looked at, who do you say that I am? We also looked at, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? And today, I want us to look at this question, where is your faith? Where is your faith? Turn with me, please, to Luke chapter 8. Luke chapter 8, verses 22 to 25. Luke writes this account regarding Jesus, and he says, one day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, let us go across to the other side of the lake. So they set out, and as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and woke him, saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased. And there was calm. He said to them, where is your faith? And they were afraid, and they marveled, saying to one another, who then is this that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him? There's two main things I want us to consider as we look at this text and examine this question, where is your faith? The first I want to talk about is what I call Fairweather Faith. Fairweather Faith. Jesus was with them. He got into the boat with them. Now I've got a picture here. In the upper left is a boat they found in the 1980s. There was a drought in the Sea of Galilee. The waters receded, and they saw this wood sticking up, so they did some excavation work. And they found this first century fishing boat from the time of Jesus. And on the right is sort of maybe perhaps what it may have looked like more completely. But this boat is about 25 feet long and about 7.5 feet wide. Typical fishing boat from that time. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that Jesus was in this boat. Possible, but perhaps one very much like it. Now again, how long did I say it was? About 25 feet. How many are in it in this story? Jesus and 12 more. 13 people in this boat. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds a little crowded. That's a lot of people in just a 25-foot boat. And I've been in all different sizes of boat, from a john boat to a cruise ship. But let me tell you, a little boat like that, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. But that's a type of boat, perhaps, that Jesus was in. But the point here is that Jesus was with them. He was with them. Jesus later, when he ascends to heaven, tells these very men, and I am with you always, to the very end of the age. God tells Joshua in the Old Testament, be strong and courageous, do not be frightened, do not be dismayed. Why? For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And the psalmist tells us, where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. And there are numerous other promises that God gives of his presence with us. But Jesus was with them in the boat. Not only that, he gives them some instructions. He says, let's go to the other side of the lake. Now, I want to show you a little map up here. And if you look at the very north part and the western part of the Sea of Galilee, particularly the northwestern part, was a Jewish territory. Over on the eastern side was Gentile territory. Jesus says, let's go where? To the other side. Jesus is deliberately taking his Jewish disciples to Gentile territory, to a territory where no good Jew would go on his own, because that's unclean. And if you read on in the story here in Luke 8, after they get out of the boat experience, they encounter the Gadarene demoniac and the demons and the pigs. We know it was a Gentile area. But Jesus was taking them to a prospective ministry to Gentiles on the other side of the lake. Let's go across the other side of the lake. And they obeyed. They obeyed and they set out. I give the disciples credit. We have nothing recorded that they murmured, oh, we can't go on that side, that's the unclean side. Nothing like that. They obeyed Jesus. They were with Jesus. What could go wrong? He was with them. And they obeyed and they set out to a place that was considered an untouchable place for Jews. Unclean. And as they venture into the boat, they get out a ways. Jesus finds a spot in that crowded boat and goes to sleep. He goes to sleep. Here we have experienced fishermen who already knew these waters, knew how to handle these boats, knew the lake. Jesus is asleep. All is well. They had nothing to fear. They didn't even question Jesus. It was smooth sailing. Until, and that's where we see the next thing happen. And the real question is, where is your faith in the storm? Because it says a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. Now I've got a topographical map up here as well for the Sea of Galilee area. And you may or may not be aware that the Jordan Rift Valley, the Jordan River starts a little north of the Sea of Galilee, comes down, exits the Sea of Galilee, goes all the way down to the Dead Sea. This whole valley is the lowest crack on the face of the earth. When you're standing at the water's edge at the Sea of Galilee, you're roughly between 600 and 700 feet below sea level. If you're down by the Dead Sea, it's about 1,300 feet below sea level. And as you can see from the topography of this map, even though it's kind of shaped like a heart, it's actually a bowl. Because all these mountains and valleys go down to the Sea of Galilee. It's an inland lake. And when the wind comes, whether it's from the west or from the east, it pushes through these narrow canyons and gorges and valleys, and it's shoved right onto the water. And very quickly, it can go from calm to storm, even today. And that's what it seems occurred here in the text as this windstorm came down. Now, there's some other things described here that's going on. The boat is filling with water. Not good. Not good. I've been in some boats, and if the boat starts filling with water, not good. Whether a little boat or a big one, the water's supposed to stay on the outside. So what do you think, even though it doesn't say, what do you think they're probably doing? Standing there going, looks like some water is coming in the boat. I suspect they're bailing. with whatever they can, their hands or whatever rags or whatever they may have, trying to get that water out of that boat. And you saw the size of that boat. Remember, there's 13 of them in there. Not good. And it also says they're being violently tossed about. That's probably about the time, if I'm in that boat, my head's over the edge and I'm sick. But I imagine, there's water in the boat, violently being tossed about, that many in that size of boat, they're probably being jostled into each other. Elbows and bumping each other, and just keeping their balance. All this not good. Here, these experienced fishermen, experienced with these types of boats, and they've lost control of the boat. Not good. When the captain loses control of the boat, it's not good. And then it says they thought they were about to die. If you're on a boat and you get that feeling, not good. It's a pretty desperate situation, it sounds like. But everything they humanly did was useless. And I'm sure they did everything they could in that desperate situation. And finally, what did they do? I give them credit here. They bring their concern to Jesus. And what do? They got to wake him up. Now, if I'm in that boat, if I was one of those disciples, I'd be wondering, how in the world can he sleep? There's water in the boat. It's being tossed all over the place. How can he sleep? That would probably be me wondering that. Now, if I had a stronger faith, I would probably say something like this and say, this situation doesn't seem to be bothering Jesus. I guess we're okay. But they go and wake Jesus up. Could you imagine going to wake Jesus up from sleep? That'd be a pretty desperate situation. And they woke him up. And he asked, after he calms the waves and the wind, where is your faith? They allowed the things of this world, they allowed fears, they allowed doubts to creep in, and they became distracted with the storm. And at least for those moments, they weren't thinking about Jesus. They were thinking about the storm. They were thinking about bailing that water, to get control of the boat. And they became distracted with this. And they directed their thinking to the storm rather than on the things and the promises of Jesus. I've said this before. I'll say it again. If God seems far away, who moved? And even though Jesus was in the boat with them, they had moved in their minds and focused on the storm for a time. How often perhaps we think God's not interested in our problems, or God seems to be asleep when the sea of life we're sailing through gets rough. But He's right there in the boat with us. Does it seem that Jesus doesn't care? How in the world could He be asleep? They didn't hang on to the promises that Jesus had already given. They'd already seen Jesus perform miracle after miracle and preach to the crowd. They'd seen some marvelous things at His very hands and the power He had. And now they see He has power over the natural elements, nature itself. But He asked that question. Where is your faith? Where is your faith? I want you to watch this video for a moment. think we'll ever truly learn what faith is in comfortable surroundings alone. God gives us the promises in the fair weather, and then He steps back to see if we really believe when the storms come. Sometimes God calms the storms in this world, and sometimes He lets it rage and He calms the storms that are within us so we can endure and get through the storm in this world. Are you afraid of the storm? Or are you like the disciples who, after the fact, it says they were afraid and marveled at Jesus? I guess the question is, which fear do you have? The fear of this world, the fear of the storms of life, or a fear of God that marvels in a sense of awe of who He is and what He can do? In Romans 8:28 we have this text, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. Where is your faith? Where is your faith? Do you have faith only in the fair weather when things are going good? Is your faith only strong when we come together in the assembly of the saints like we're here right now? Is it only good weather faith? The real question is, where is your faith when the storms come? And they can come suddenly, unexpected. Sometimes we may need to go through a storm before we reach a place of fruitful ministry. Jesus told them to go to the other side of the lake. Jesus had in purpose a mind, a ministry to people on the other side. They had to go through that storm before they could reach that ministry that God had for them. God has a ministry for each and every one of us. Once you use your gifts, your talents, your abilities, He says, get in the boat. Let's go to the other side. May sound pretty easy. It's not really all that far a distance on the Sea of Galilee. But a storm can come up. And He wants to see how strong your faith is through that storm, so He can use you in an even mightier way in that ministry He has envisioned for you. Yeah, I think if I was in the boat, my head would have been hanging over the side. And I'd been just like them, bailing. Maybe we ought to start thinking and learn from their story and their experience. If Jesus wasn't alarmed, why should we be? Where is your faith? Let's stand as we sing.